What is it that makes Cabernet Sauvignon the iconic varietal it is today? And what's up with this bottle and cork presentation they do when you order a full bottle at a restaurant? The answers to those coming up next. Finally, after weeks and weeks of talking about France and Italy and Spain, it's Cabernet Sauvignon time. This is a grape that we just love here in the US and we grow it really well here. Unfortunately, we still have to give a little bit of credit to France because that's where Cabernet was born. In the bombshell announcement I made last week on Cabernet Franc, revealing it was one of the two parents of Cabernet Sauvignon, I'm going to give you a bigger bombshell this week. The other parent of Cabernet Sauvignon is Sauvignon Blanc. So one day in a field in France in the 18th century, Cabernet Franc and Sauvignon Blanc looked at each other from across the way. Maybe they had a few too many drinks, I don't know. But they hooked up and Cabernet Sauvignon was born. Sauvignon is actually French for wild, so wild Cabernet. It is a grape that is planted all over the world now. In fact, almost 750,000 acres of Cabernet are planted worldwide. You can find this everywhere. I mean, here's a scrolling list of all the countries that are growing Cabernet. I mean, it's astounding. Look at that list. Just, whew, yeah, a lot of Cabernet. And I want to take a minute and just talk about why this grape grows so well everywhere. So first, quick little fourth grade geography lesson. There is a parallel, we're sort of talking longitude and latitudes here. The 45th parallel divides each hemisphere exactly in half. That just happens to coincide with Bordeaux, the Rhone Valley, the Finger Lakes in New York, Willamette Valley in Oregon. It is a spectacular latitude for growing wine. Anything in between the 30th and the 50th parallel, north and south hemisphere, is the perfect area for growing wine. Some places a little bit more suited to certain grapes than others, and certainly the elevation, the altitude that you might be at within an area is going to affect it as well. So Chile, for example, makes really good value Cabernet Sauvignon, and part of the reason they make the wine so well there is because they can do it at some higher altitudes, so they get cool nights and they get hot days. Those are some conditions that make for great Cabernet Sauvignon. Why is it that Cabernet is so widely planted, other than the fact that it's delicious? Number one, Cabernet thrives in well-drained, gravelly soils. So anyone who's ever had a house plant knows if the plant doesn't require much water, it's got a much better chance of survival. It also survives well in climates that have very cold winters. The vines are very resilient to cold, and they also are very late ripening berries. So for a place that has frost late into the spring, Cabernet hasn't yet bud in most cases, and so there's not much damage or risk of damage if there's a late frost. And lastly, this is a very thick-skinned, small grape. So a lot of pigmentation and flavoring from the skins, high tannins from it, and a high concentration of juice and sugar and not a whole lot of water, which makes for just some nice, acidic, just awesome, awesome wines. You guys know this. California, one interesting thing about your Cabernet in California, by law, this bottle here, for example, says Cabernet Sauvignon on it. 75% of that wine must be Cabernet Sauvignon. The other 25% can be anything else. And oftentimes it is if it's needed to have a few things to help balance it out and round it out. And oak is another ingredient that's used when they ferment and age the wines in oak barrels. The oak itself can act as another ingredient, a seasoning, a flavoring to help smooth out some rough edges, that Cabernet might have. One of the last things I want to mention about Cabernet that just makes it so amazing is how one varietal can be so diverse and have so many different styles depending on where it's grown or how it's made. Warmer climates like Napa, for example, are going to produce some really dark-berried, full-bodied, intense wines. Cooler climates, like maybe Washington State, are going to bring some very different styles, maybe a little bit more red fruits, maybe a little bit more elegant, and maybe a little bit more herbaceous, a little bit more green in some of its components. but I encourage you to give it a try from Washington, to try a blend from Australia with some Shiraz mixed in it, to try one from Chile, which is making some of the best value Cabernets out there right now. Hopefully we're going to be able to prove that you can still find a good $20 bottle of Cabernet at a Napa Valley. On to the tasting. I'm going to try something a little different this week, and I feel like I learned a little bit of a lesson with the Cab Franc episode last time. I'm going to taste this right now. I literally just opened it, and I am going to go through my tasting as usual, and then I'm going to come back 30 minutes later and give a couple of last minute notes, because I feel like I shortchanged Cab Franc last time, and Cabernet Sauvignon is most likely going to provide a pretty similar experience. So we're going to give first impressions and then 30-minute later impressions, and I'm just making this up as I go. All right, color. As I expected, this is dark. I cannot see, like, through the core of the wine. I can't see through it. Maybe a little bit at the top edges, but this is a dark garnet wine, which not too surprising. It's very nice. I mean, this thing is beautiful, beautiful color. Let's give it a smell. Woo! That's awesome. The fact that it smells this good, I mean, I seriously opened this 2 minutes ago. Oh man, that's just delightful. This is intense, and I mean, the fact that this is a 2018 is coming through, this does smell young. I certainly saw it in the color too. There's no color difference. Okay, so I'm getting some very dark fruits. This is blackberry. I'm getting a little bit of mint, but like toothpaste mint. Not quite as much like the plant, almost manufactured. Yeah, I'm getting this toothpastey mint. I don't think I've ever smelled that before. Oh, that's so cool. So quick side note, I love mint in wine. If I'm reading a critic's description of a wine and it smells, they describe it smelling like mint or menthol, there's a good chance I'm going to get it if I can afford it. I absolutely love that smell. And I want to give a quick shout out to my friend Ryan, who for my wedding in 2002 bought me 2 bottles of wine. They were both from Heights in Napa. One of them was the 1997 Heights Martha's Vineyard. That wine smelled so much like mint, more than any wine I've had since, and I freaking loved it. And thank you, Ryan. This is bringing me back to that Heights. I doubt it's going to be quite as good, but I love the mint. I'm not really getting too much oak. There's a little vanilla in the nose, which I like, because I don't like wines that are overly oaked, but there is a little bit of vanilla there. And yeah, vanilla, that blackberry fruit, that toothpastey mint. All right, let's give it a taste. Wow, I almost couldn't open my mouth. It like sealed shut from the tannins in there. Dry wine, totally expected that. Really no sweetness to it. Maybe I can go off dry. Tannins are definitely medium plus. I need to give the acidity another try here. Cabernet is usually a pretty acidic wine as well, and I'm not getting too much of it right now. I'm going to call this medium acidity. I expect it to be kind of drooling all over the place. Not quite as much here. And I like the alcohol level on this. I'm guessing it's higher than I think it is. It's a very smooth finish. I'm not getting much alcohol on the finish. 14.5%. They did a nice job. This is balanced. There's not any one element really overpowering. I mean, the tannins are pretty grippy. And again, I'm excited to try this 30 minutes later. From a fruit perspective, oh, I forgot body. I'm going to call this medium to full, medium plus in the body. All right, flavor-wise, definitely getting those black fruits. It's got nice, like a blackberry jam, but not like one made by Welch's, like one of those that you get in the fancy organic section that doesn't have any sugar added to it, just the pure fruit. I'm getting more of the oak components. So far I like it. I'm gonna give it a pause and come back in 30 minutes and see how much this puppy's changed. All right, what do you guys want to talk about? I have to admit, it's been a little bit more than 30 minutes and I've had a little bit more than one more glass of this. On the bright side, I think I can really vouch for what this wine's all about now. It has confirmed a lot of the things that I detected the first time. That blackberry jam, very pronounced now. I got a little bit of black cherry added to this now as well. And as I had it with food and let it open up some more, the tannin softened a little bit. The finish, I think, was just right for this price point and what you're asking for this. There was a little bit of white pepper that emerged, a little bit of leatheriness and some kind of savory grilled meat flavors. Granted, I had some meat with it, so that probably contributed to it, but I do feel like that emerged a little bit from the wine. Let me try one more time. This is not an overly complex wine, but the nice thing is it's not trying to be. It's just solid. So I'm going to score this 7 points on my 10-point scale. I think it's doing a nice job of representing what kind of quintessential Cabernet can be. It's lacking a little bit of the herbaceousness that you get sometimes with Napa, with Cabernet, excuse me. But it's a solid effort. I would recommend this. I would have this again. If I had this at a restaurant with a ribeye, I'd probably really enjoy it. And I do think a ribeye or something along those lines would be a good pairing. And I've kind of learned this in researching cabs this week. The high tannin level in cab is going to help take those proteins and fat molecules that have kind of been bound to your tongue from having something like a grilled ribeye, and it kind of binds them and washes them away, clears them out, kind of scrubs them off your tongue a little bit, and you get to start all over again with the next bite and your next sip. So yeah, I think that would be a great pairing and would recommend giving this a shot. Napa Cabernet. Who knew? Oh wait, no, we all did. Let's talk about restaurant bottle and cork presentation. It's a little bit of an odd ritual, but there are a few things you need to know and how to handle the situation. So first thing is you're going to go through the restaurant menu and finally pick out a bottle of wine you're happy with, order it. And a few minutes later, the server, the sommelier, is going to come back with your bottle of wine. And if you're at a really fancy place, they might have a little white cloth over their arm and present the bottle like so. They are going to hopefully recite 3 things to you. And if not, if they just set it down and show it to you, you need to look for 3 things on your own. You are looking for, or they're probably going to say, Clos de Napa, Cabernet Sauvignon 2018. So those 3 components are what you need to verify. Is this the producer you ordered? Is this the grape you ordered? And is this the vintage you ordered? If it's any of those 3 are not correct, have a quick conversation. If they bring you the 2019 instead of the 2018, maybe it's no big deal. Maybe there's a little bait and switch going on. It's probably no big deal, but go ahead and bring it to their attention and talk to them about it. The next thing that's going to happen is you're going to need to give them some type of signal that, yeah, this looks good. My favorite is, let's do this. If you want to just say looks good or giddy up, whatever you want to say to your server to let them know, go ahead and open the bottle that it looks good, do so. They will then proceed to open the bottle, and when they're done, they're going to do this weird thing where they take the cork out and they're going to set it down on the table right next to you. Maybe they even have a fancy little silver or silver plate or little glass dish that they're going to put it in. What you need to do with that cork is absolutely nothing. You might be tempted to smell it or touch it or inspect it, and you don't have to do any of those things. In fact, I think the one thing you should do, if you feel the need to do something during this time, while they're opening their bottle, grab your wine glass, particularly if the restaurant's really busy, if maybe you're the second group to have sat down for the night, it's like 7:30, 8 o'clock, the restaurant's churned a few tables already. Maybe your glass just got washed. Give it a smell, make sure it doesn't smell like detergent, because that's a quick way to ruin a glass of wine. And once they've opened and poured your bottle, well, you're kind of stuck with it. So anyway, cork, you don't need to do anything with it. if you want to inspect it, there's a few things you can look for. First of all, I want to just explain something to you here. The reason that we believe that we have this silly ritual in the first place is to actually make sure that the wine's not counterfeit. It's really not a concern anymore, and maybe with a super high-end bottle, that'd be something you'd look for. But most corks like this one are going to name the producer, where it's from, the vintage, all of that on the cork as well. So if you want to take a quick look and make sure that what the label says and what the corks say match, you can do that. The odds of you getting a counterfeit bottle are so slim, I wouldn't worry about it. Particularly the type of bottles people like me order. If you're buying a Chateau Lafite, maybe you got to worry about it. The other thing is, you want to just inspect, if you're going to inspect the cork, look at the coloration. So in this case, this is a perfect cork where, you know, it's red on the end that was facing the wine. That makes sense. The rest of the cork looks exactly like it should with no wine discoloration at all. You might get one like this where about half of the cork has got some wine discoloration. That's not necessarily a bad thing, but it could be a little bit of a warning sign. What would really be a warning sign is where you got one like this, where you got a little streak that's starting to go down. This one doesn't go all the way down, but if this went all the way to the bottom, or essentially to the top of the cork, that's maybe a sign that this bottle wasn't stored well. There's a higher likelihood that the bottle's damaged, so you want to look out for that when you do your tasting. So once they presented the cork, you can just give them a little nod. You can do nothing. They don't expect you to do anything with the cork. You can take it home if you want to, which is something that I do once in a while, particularly if I really like the bottle and I want to make sure that I remember it. You can take the cork home because, like I said, it probably says everything about it on the cork. But at this point, they're going to pour you a little taste, and we are going to save that and what to do next for next week. Thank you for watching this week. I hope you enjoyed this review of Cabernet Sauvignon. If so, please give me a like below and add any comments you might have. Next week, we are going to move on to yet another varietal from Bordeaux, Carmenere. This time, we're going to move and have one from the Southern Hemisphere in Chile. Until then, please keep trying new wines. And as always, cheers.